The courtroom in Memphis, Tennessee, was a cauldron of stunned gasps and electric tension, the air thick with the scent of old wood and nervous sweat as Malik Evans, a 17-year-old black teen in a worn red hoodie, stood at the defendant's table. His hands gripped a small, engraved silver ring, his mother's keepsake, a relic from a woman shattered by the system, and his voice sliced through the chaos, steady and unshaken as he dismantled a cop's testimony. "You swore I swung at you, but your body cam shows I never raised a fist, doesn't it?" Officer Daniel Pierce, a stocky man with a tight jaw and a badge gleaming on his chest, froze on the stand, his eyes darting as prosecutor Helen Carver, a sleek woman with a venomous smirk, dropped her pen, the clatter echoing like a gunshot across the room. The jury jolted upright, their eyes widening as Judge Evelyn Marwood slammed her gavel, her stern face twitching with disbelief, her gray streaks trembling under the harsh lights. "You're out of line, Mr. Evans. Prove it, or sit down." Carver recovered, her smirk twisting into a sneer as she crossed her arms, her voice dripping with scorn. "This kid's playing detective. It's a farce, Your Honor." But the gallery bailiffs shifting, spectators whispering fell silent, their gazes locking on Malik as he stood tall, the ring glinting faintly in his grip. Moments ago, Carver had smirked through Malik's defense, tearing into him with a predator's relish as Pierce spun his tail, but now that smirk wavered, replaced by a flicker of unease as Malik's accusation landed like a thunderbolt. Just minutes earlier, Carver had paced before the jury, painting Malik as a violent thug caught assaulting an officer, fleeing a crime scene with wild aggression, another lost cause from the streets. The jury had leaned into her narrative, their nods mirroring her confidence. But now they stared, doubt creeping into their faces as Malik's words shook the room, his quiet precision a shock no one saw coming. Marwood leaned forward, her glasses slipping, her tone sharp with irritation and curiosity. "You'd better have something solid, young man, or this ends now." Malik nodded, his jaw tight, his fingers tightening around the ring as a quiet fire burned in his dark eyes. "I'm not here to lose, Your Honor. I'm here for my mom, for what they did to her." Carver chuckled, a harsh, grating sound as she waved a dismissive hand. "He's stalling with sob stories, pathetic." But the jury's eyes shifted, intrigue replacing their earlier certainty, a woman in the front row clutching her pen as if braced for impact. The room tilted, something seismic was breaking, and they all felt it ripple through the air like a shockwave. Malik wasn't just a defendant. He was a force, armed with a ring and a truth no one expected. Carver's smirk hung by a thread, Marwood's patience frayed, and the teen they'd pegged as guilty was about to prove the police lied. The ring gleamed, a quiet promise from a past he refused to let die. The trial had been a merciless grind before Malik's stand, a cold, relentless machine designed to crush him beneath its weight with surgical efficiency. Earlier that morning, the Memphis courtroom had thrummed with the hum of routine, as Helen Carver laid out her case with the precision of a predator stalking a cornered prey. On July 10th, police responded to a disturbance call in a rundown neighborhood alley fight, shouts echoing through the night, ending with Malik nabbed a block away, allegedly swinging at Officer Pierce, resisting arrest with a fury that left the cop's sleeve torn. "He's a violent menace," Carver had declared, pacing before the jury with a sleek, predatory grace, her tailored blazer catching the light as she flashed photos of Pierce's scratched arm and a blurry figure in a red hoodie. Caught assaulting an officer, fleeing the scene, a clear danger to this city. Malik sat through the barrage, his public defender, Karen Wells, scribbling notes beside him, her presence a formality had barely tolerated, her nervous fidgeting a stark contrast to his calm resolve that seemed carved from stone. Karen was young, her cheap suit faded, her voice faltering as she tried to counter, her hands trembling under Carver's onslaught like leaves in a storm. "The evidence is shaky," Shed muttered, her words lost in the prosecutor's barrage, but Carver pounced like a cat on a wounded mouse. "Shaky? We've got an officer's testimony, a torn sleeve, and a kid who fought like a wild animal." The jury smirked, their eyes flicking to Malik's worn red hoodie, the frayed cuffs brushing his wrists, his scuffed sneakers tapping faintly against the floor. Another black boy from the wrong side of town, guilty in their minds before proof was weighed. Judge Evelyn Marwood tapped her pen against the bench, her stern face etched with impatience as she cut Karen off mid-sentence with a sharp glare that carried a hint of boredom, her gray streaks glinting under the dim lights like steel in shadow. "Move it along, Ms. Wells, let's not waste time," Shed said, her voice clipped. as she nodded to Carver, her patience thinning with every word, her demeanor signaling a case already half decided. But there were cracks, sharp, jagged fissures slicing through the prosecution's case, if anyone dared to look closely enough to see them. Pierce's story wavered, claimed Malik swung first, yet his report was vague on who started the scuffle, and no witnesses saw the punch. The flight was Malik stepping back when rushed, and the resistance was him pulling away when tackled without warning, his voice hoarse as he demanded, "What's going on?" Karen had tried to poke at these holes. There's no clear timeline, no solid proof, but Carver drowned her out with a theatrical scoff, her smirk widening as she turned to the jury with a flourish that commanded the room like a ringmaster in a circus of justice. "No proof. He's a flight risk. Look at him." Shed sneered, gesturing at Malik like he was a stray dog fouling the space, her sharp features glinting with disdain. "Does this boy scream innocent to you?" The gallery chuckled, a low ripple of amusement bouncing off the walls, Marwood nodding in agreement as her pen tapped faster, her stern demeanor reinforcing Carver's narrative with quiet authority. "Enough dawdling, counselor," Shed growled, dismissing Karen's efforts with a flick of her wrist that carried the weight of inevitability, her earlier haste. Now a quiet undercurrent of disdain that set the tone for the trial. Jamal's hands stayed folded, the silver ring his mom Neos engraved. Keepsake resting in his lap like a quiet anchor, its faint warmth a lifeline through the storm that threatened to engulf him. He wasn't just fighting for himself, was fighting for Nia, locked up years ago on a trumped-up charge, broken by a system that never cared, dead from overdose. In a cell block where hope had long since faded. "Not me too," Malik vowed silently, his grip tightening on the ring. "It's cool." Metal a whisper of defiance against the tide that sought to drown him. It's engraving asterisk hold fast asterisk, a mantra from a womanhood fought until she couldn't anymore. The defense's turn came as the afternoon sun slanted through the courtroom's grimy windows, casting long, jagged shadows across the scuffed wooden floor, the air growing heavier with the scent of dust and tension as the day wore on, the weight of the proceedings pressing down like a storm cloud ready to burst. Karen Wells stood, her voice unsteady as she adjusted her notes with shaky hands, the burden of the case pressing down on her slight frame like a weight she couldn't lift, her faded blazer sagging under the strain of exhaustion and inexperience. "The defense calls Malik Evans," her words faltered as Malik rose, his sneakers scuffing against the floor with a soft, deliberate squeak that silenced the room. Like a gunshot in the stillness, his worn red hoodie swaying slightly as he stepped forward with a quiet resolve that rippled through the stale air like a shockwave, his dark eyes steady with a purpose that burned brighter than the dim lights above. "I'll do it myself," he said, his tone calm but unyielding, carrying a strength that made Karen pause, her hands dropping in defeat, her nervous fidgeting stilled by the teen's quiet authority that seemed to fill the space like a rising tide. Karen blinked, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and panic as she leaned close, her voice a desperate whisper that barely reached Malik's ears over the hum of the room, her hands clutching her notes like a lifeline slipping through her trembling fingers under the weight of the moment. "Malik, you can't, this is insane." But Malik shook his head, his gaze unwavering, his jaw set with a resolve that made Karen falter, her cheap suit slumping as she stepped back, outmatched by the boy's certainty that radiated like heat from a forge. "I've seen what lawyers Dolos my mom caused. They didn't fight hard enough. In my own defense now," he said, his voice steady, his words a quiet declaration that carried the weight of years spent watching the system fail those he loved most, a vow forged in the fire of loss. Judge Marwood's stern frown deepened, her gavel hovering like a threat as she peered down from her bench, her stern features hardening with skepticism, a faint trace of amusement tugging at her lips like she was watching a child play at grown-up stakes, her gray streaks catching the dim light as she tilted her head slightly, sizing up the audacity before her with a mix of curiosity and disdain. "You're representing yourself, Mr. Evans?" she asked, her voice sharp with incredulity, her earlier haste now laced with a hint of mockery that echoed through the room like a quiet challenge. Malik nodded, stepping to the witness box with a calm that unnerved the space. The silver ring clutched tightly in his right hand, its engraved surface glinting faintly as a quiet testament to his mother's legacy, its warmth a heartbeat through the storm that threatened to engulf him. Marwood started sharp, her tone slicing through the tension like a whip crack, her patience already fraying at the edges like a worn rope stretched too thin. her stern voice carrying a weight of dismissal that underscored her earlier command to move swiftly. "Where were you on July 10th, Mr. Evans?" she demanded, her eyes narrowing as she adjusted her glasses with a flick, her stern demeanor a wall of authority. Malik leaned into the microphone, his voice clear and resonant, filling the space with an authority that belied his years, his words carrying a weight that seemed to settle into the bones of the room like a stone into still water, his presence steady despite the pressure bearing down like a vice. "At home, fixing my bike in the yard till I went to check on a friend down the block," he said, his tone even, his words a quiet anchor in the chaos, his hoodie swaying slightly as he shifted his weight. Carver jumped in, cutting off Marwood's next question with a venomous edge, her smirk widening as she leaned forward, her sleek frame glinting with mockery. Under the harsh lights, her tailored blazer a stark contrast to Malik's worn hoodie that hung loose on his lean frame. "Fixing a bike? Nice little story, kid. WHYD, they find you fighting Pierce, then?" She sneered, her sharp features twisting with disdain as she taunted him, her voice a lash meant to sting. Malik's eyes narrowed, a flicker of fire sparking behind his steady facade as he met the prosecutor's taunt head-on, his voice steady but edged with defiance. That cut through the air like a blade forged in the heat of loss, his words, carrying a quiet fury that simmered beneath the surface. "I don't know, maybe cause he lied. Wouldn't be the first time they've pinned it on someone like me," he said, his tone measured but sharp, his words a challenge that hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. Carver laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed off the walls like a vulture's cackle as she turned to the jury with a theatrical flourish, her sleek frame squared with confidence that oozed from her tailored blazer like venom from a snake's fangs, her sharp eyes glinting with mockery that pierced the room. "He's got an excuse for everything, doesn't he? A regular mechanic caught swinging at a cop." The gallery snickered, a juror in the back smirked faintly, their amusement a low hum that rippled through the space. But Malik's face remained an unyielding mask of determination, his fingers tightening around the silver ring as if drawing strength from its engraved surface, Neos' voice whispering in his mind. Asterisk hold fast, baby. Asterisk Marwood tried again, her patience visibly thinning as she adjusted her glasses. With a sharp flick, her stern voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade. Through fog, her gray streaks framing a face taut with irritation that bordered on disdain, her earlier haste now a quiet undercurrent of frustration that sharpened her words. "Explain the arrest, then quickly, or we're done here," she growled, her tone a command that brooked no delay, her eyes narrowing as she leaned forward. Slightly, her stern demeanor a wall that dared him to falter. Malik nodded, his voice steady as he recounted the night, each word laced with a quiet fury that simmered beneath his calm exterior, his grip on the ring tightening as he spoke, the faint warmth of its metal a heartbeat that kept him grounded in the chaos, a tether to his mother's fight. Cops rolled up out of nowhere, no lights, no siren, just tackled me a block from home as I walked back from my friends. They slammed me against a wall, tore my bag open, pinned me without a word. I pulled back when they wouldn't say why anyone would have done the same, he said, his tone even but edged with a fire that burned through the lies, his hoodie a quiet banner of resilience against the storm. Carver pounced, her smirk twisting into a sneer as she leaned in, her voice dripping with disdain that oozed like poison from her sleek frame, her tailored blazer a stark contrast to Malik's worn attire as she lashed out with venomous precision, her sharp eyes piercing the air like daggers. "Resisting arrest, just like I said. You really expect us to swallow this sob story, kid?" She sneered, her words a whip meant to flay him, her confidence a shield that began to crack under his gaze. Malik didn't flinch, his gaze locking onto hers with a quiet intensity that made the room hold its breath, his words a precursor to the storm he was about to unleash, his voice steady as he prepared to dismantle her case with surgical precision. "I expect you to check the facts, cause I've got more than stories. You swore I swung at him, but your body cam shows I never raised a fist, doesn't it?" The snickers died, a murmur of intrigue rippling through the gallery like a wave breaking on a shore, the jury's eyes widening as Pierce shifted uncomfortably on the stand, Carver's smirk flickering like a candle in the wind, but the real blow was yet to land, poised to shatter the lies with a truth head-honed in silence. The courtroom thrummed with raw tension, a tempest brewing beneath the flickering fluorescent lights as Malik Evans stood at the defendant's table, his Worn red hoodie, a vivid symbol against the polished chaos that swirled around him like a gathering storm. The jury's eyes bore into Officer Daniel Pierce on the stand, his stocky frame stiffening, his tight jaw twitching under Malik's relentless gaze, beads of sweat forming on his brow as he shifted uncomfortably, while Prosecutor Helen Carver gripped her podium with trembling hands, her sleek frame creasing her tailored blazer, her venomous smirk faltering under the weight of panic that glistened in her sharp eyes. "You swore I swung at you," Malik said, his voice steady and piercing, cutting through the thick air like a shard of sunlight through a darkened storm, each word a deliberate strike that landed with precision. "But your body cam shows I never raised a fist. Would you lie about that?" Pierce shifted again, his eyes darting as he stammered, "Two saw you move." Malik held up the silver ring Neos, engraved keepsake, its faint warmth a quiet. Polsan turned to the jury, his calm masking a fire that blazed in his dark eyes, a fury forged in years of watching the system tear his family apart. "Move, not swing." "He's got no proof," he said, his tone a quiet thunder that rumbled through the room, his words a challenge to the lies that had built the case against him. The gallery hummed with disbelief, a juror in the front row leaning forward, her lips parting in a silent gasp as she whispered to the man beside her, her pen pausing mid-stroke, ink smudging slightly under the pressure of her grip as she processed the shift. Judge Evelyn Marwood slammed her gavel, the sharp crack reverberating off the wood-paneled walls like a gunshot through the stillness, her stern face flushed with irritation and a flicker of unease that betrayed her earlier impatience. Her gray streaks trembling under the strain of the moment as she fought to hold the reins. "Back that up, Mr. Evans, or I'll end this now," she barked, her voice sharp with a mix of disbelief and authority, her stern demeanor a wall that dared him to falter under her glare. Malik nodded, his fingers brushing the ring, its faint warmth a quiet echo of his mother's unyielding spirit. A woman had fought the system's lies until it broke her body and soul. "Check the arrest log," he said, his tone unwavering as he locked eyes with the judge, his voice carrying a weight that silenced the room's murmurs like a hush. Over a battlefield, steady and commanding despite the storm brewing around him. "Pierce says he nabbed me at 10:45 p.m. fighting him, but the call came at 10:30 a.m. block away. No chase, no fist. Showed I do that?" Pierce sputtered, his words tripping over themselves in a frantic rush, his stocky frame shrinking as he flailed, his badge glinting mockingly under the lights like a tarnished trophy, his tight jaw clenching as he grasped for an answer. 2 minutes. Malik cut him off, his voice rising just enough to drown the cop's faltering excuse, his words sharp as a blade honed by years of watching injustice unfold before his eyes, cutting through the lies with surgical precision. "You meant to lie plain as day," he said, his tone a quiet thunder that rumbled through the room, his words a verdict that hung like a guillotine over Pierce's faltering testimony. Jurors exchanged glances, a man in the second row scribbling furiously, his pen scratching audibly in the tense hush as ink bled onto the page, his brow furrowed with growing doubt that etched lines into his face, while a woman's jaw tightened, her eyes narrowing at Pierce with a spark of suspicion that flared into a quiet fury, her fingers clenching her notepad like a lifeline as she leaned forward, gripped by the shift. Carver lunged forward, her voice a desperate bark as she waved her notes like a tattered shield, her sleek frame trembling as she fought to hold ground, her tailored blazer creasing under the pressure of her unraveling case, her sharp eyes darting wildly as she grasped for control. "The fight ties him to the crime. End of story," she shouted, her words a frantic plea that echoed hollowly, her venomous smirk a ghost of its former self as she tried to shore up the crumbling edifice of her case. Malik didn't flinch, his posture steady as he countered, his words measured but lethal, his grip on the ring firm as if it were a beacon through the chaos that threatened to engulf him, its engraving asterisk hold fast asterisk a mantra that steadied his resolve. "No fight. Fourth Amendment says you can't search without cause. Where's your proof I swung first?" he asked, his tone a quiet hammer that struck at the foundation of Pierce's lies, his words a challenge that pierced the air like a spear. The room reeled, Carver's notes slipping from her grasp to scatter across the floor like fallen petals, her sleek frame shaking as she scrambled to regain control, her voice a hollow echo in the growing tempest that swirled around her like a hurricane ready to break. "This is absurd," she shouted, her words a desperate cry that faded into the roar, but the jury wasn't nodding. They glared, their earlier trust splintering like brittle wood under a sledgehammer's blow. their faces hardening with suspicion as they leaned forward, gripped by Malik's precision that cut through the lies like a blade through flesh. Malik stood taller, the ring a silent vow in his hand. They want shatter me, Mom. The evidence was fracturing, cracking under his relentless truth, and Carver's grip was slipping like sand through her trembling fingers, the case teetering on the edge of collapse as Pierce's lies began to crumble under the weight of Malik's quiet fire. Carver's voice pitched higher, a frantic edge clawing through her crumbling defenses as she pounded her podium, her sharp eyes wild under the courtroom's unforgiving lights, her tailored blazer creasing as panic seized her like a vice, her once venomous smirk unraveling like threadbare cloth under a storm's relentless pull, her sleek frame trembling as she fought to shore up the wreckage. He's a thug. Pierce saw him swing. That's enough. Malik stepped closer to the stand, his sneakers thudding softly against the worn floor, and reached into his hoodie pocket with deliberate calm, pulling out a folded printout, the edges creased but the text clear as day, a quiet bombshell in his steady hand. Hey, race, what you didn't expect, he said, his voice low but razor-sharp, slicing through the prosecutor's bluster like a blade through fog, his dark eyes glinting with a fire forged in the crucible of his mother's loss, a blaze that had simmered for years. On July 10th, I was at Carter's gas buying a soda 3 blocks away. This receipt proves it, he declared, his tone a quiet thunder that rumbled through the room, his words a revelation that landed like a grenade in the heart of the prosecution's case. He handed it to the bailiff, a crumpled receipt, time-stamped 10:32 p.m., signed by the clerk, showing had been nowhere near the stash house when the call came in. A simple piece of paper that held the weight of truth. The courtroom detonated, a thunderous wave of gasps and shouts crashing through the space like a breaking dam, the air vibrating with the force of the revelation that shook the room to its foundation, the sound a roar that seemed to rattle the very walls. Jurors jolted upright, Carver's face drained to a ghostly pallor, her sleek frame swaying as Judge Marwood snatched the receipt, her stern eyes scanning it with a deepening scowl, her gray streaks trembling with the force of her grip. Her earlier impatience now a bitter jest swallowed by the moment's gravity that pressed down like a storm cloud unleashed. Why wasn't this submitted earlier? She demanded, her voice sharp with disbelief and frustration, her gavel hovering like a storm ready to strike, her glasses slipping as she glared at Malik with a mix of awe and irritation that flickered in her stern gaze, her earlier haste a memory buried under the weight of his stand. Malik's gaze hardened, a flicker of pain flashing behind his steady resolve as he stood firm, his voice steady but laced with grief that cut deeper than any blade, his words a testament to years of watching the system fail, a quiet fire that burned through the lies. Because I didn't trust a system that let my mom die in jail on a lie she overdosed in a cell, and they called it her fault. I kept this close, learned that from her, he said, his tone a quiet hammer that struck at the heart of the prosecution's case, his words a vow forged in the fire of loss that echoed through the room like a tolling bell. Carver lunged forward, her voice a panicked shriek as she waved a trembling hand, her sleek frame shaking like a leaf in a gale, her tailored blazer no shield against the tide that threatened to sweep her away, her sharp eyes darting wildly as she grasped for control that slipped like water through her fingers. It's fake. He can't. Malik cut her off, his tone rising with a controlled fury that silenced the room, his words ringing like a clarion call through the chaos, his grip on the ring a lifeline through the storm that battered the prosecution's crumbling edifice like a hurricane unleashed. Call Mr. Carter, the clerk. Check his security cam. I was buying a soda when that call came in 3 blocks away, he said, his voice a quiet thunder that shook the room, his words a challenge that pierced the air like a spear thrown true, his resolve unyielding as he faced the lies head-on. The gallery roared, a juror in the back shouting, he's got proof. His voice thick with indignation, his fist slamming the armrest in a burst of outrage that echoed through the room like a gunshot, his eyes blazing with realization that mirrored the growing fury around him, his hands trembling with the weight of the moment. Marwood ordered the clerk to verify, her gavel pounding as the room held its breath, the air crackling with anticipation like lightning about to strike, the tension coiling tighter with every tick of the clock that seemed to match the ring's quiet pulse, a rhythm of truth cutting through the storm. Carver paced like a trapped beast, her polished heels clicking against the floor, her composure a shredded rag as she muttered under her breath, grasping at threads that slipped away like smoke through her trembling fingers, her sleek frame shrinking under the weight of the moment as her case teetered on collapse. 15 minutes later, the clerk returned, her voice trembling as she clutched a printout, her hands shaking under the weight of the revelation, her eyes wide, with the gravity of what she held like a torch piercing the darkness that had shrouded the trial. Mr. Carter confirmed security footage shows him at 10:34, Your Honor, she said. Her words a quiet explosion that shattered the silence, her breath catching as she spoke, her voice a tremor that echoed through the room like a crack in a dam. The jury exploded, a man leaping to his feet, yelling, They lied. His voice raw with fury, his hands trembling as he pointed at Pierce, his eyes burning with betrayal that swept through the room like wildfire, his outrage a spark that ignited the others. Carver's objection drowned in the chaos, her words lost in a sea of boos and shouts that swelled like a tsunami, her sleek frame shrinking under the onslaught as her case crumbled like a house of cards in a gale, her sharp eyes darting in panic. This doesn't change, but Malik wasn't done. He turned to Pierce, the ring glinting as he pointed with a steady hand, his voice a quiet thunder that shook the room, its warmth a testament to his mother's fight that pulsed through him like a heartbeat reborn. You swore I swung at you, but your body cam shows I never raised a fist, doesn't it? You lied to pin this on me, he said, his tone a quiet hammer that struck at the heart of Pierce's lies, his words a verdict that hung like a guillotine over the cop's faltering testimony, his resolve a fire that burned through the falsehoods like a cleansing flame. The twist landed like a dynamite blast. Malik wasn't just a teen, he was Neos. Avenger, wielding the body cam to unearth a crypt of corruption, his quiet precision a weapon that broke the case wide open with a single, shattering truth. Pierce's testimony buckled, the jury's fury a tidal wave crashing over him, sweeping away every shred of his credibility in a deafening roar that shook the courtroom to its foundation, the lie exposed like a wound laid bare under Malik's relentless stand. Malik faced the jury, his voice raw but resolute, carrying a power that filled the courtroom like a rising tempest, his worn red hoodie swaying as he stood firm, his presence a beacon amidst the chaos that swirled around him like a hurricane unleashed, his resolve unyielding as he delivered his final blow. They said I was guilty cause in black and from the street, but this isn't just about me. It's about my mom, about every life they've crushed with lies and badges, he declared, his tone steady yet fierce, his words a legal sword forged from his mother's lessons that cut through the storm like a blade through flesh. He held up the silver ring, its engraved surface a symbol of defiance, its faint warmth a quiet echo of Neos' lost fight, a heartbeat that pulsed through the years of injustice like a rhythm refusing to fade, its engraving asterisk hold fast asterisk a mantra that steadied him through the chaos. She taught me to hold on the Fourth Amendment, says they can't lie to search me. And I've proved Pierce did, he said, his voice a quiet thunder that rumbled through the room, his words a verdict that hung like a storm cloud over the prosecution's crumbling case, his resolve a fire that burned brighter with every word. The jurors stared, their outrage boiling over one woman's eyes glistening with tears, her hands trembling as she gripped her notepad, ink smudging from the pressure of her grip as she processed the truth, a man's fists clenched tight, enough to whiten his knuckles, his jaw set with a fury that mirrored Malik's own, his gaze burning with a newfound respect that lit the room like a flare in the darkness. Carver tried one last gasp, her voice a broken croak as she pounded her podium, her sleek features contorted in desperation, her tailored blazer creasing as her control slipped away like sand through her trembling fingers, her earlier venomous smirk now a ghost that haunted her faltering stand. He's conning you with tricks, she screamed, her words a frantic plea that cracked under the weight of the room's fury, swallowed by the crowd's jeers and hisses that rose like a wave from the gallery, drowning her fading authority in a sea of contempt that flooded the space like a tide unleashed, her sharp eyes darting in panic as her case crumbled. Judge Marwood's gavel crashed, her face grim as she fought to regain control, her stern voice cutting through the din like a blade through smoke, her gray streaks trembling with the force of her command, her earlier haste replaced by a grudging awe that flickered in her stern gaze as she grappled with the shift. Her authority tested by the storm Malik had unleashed. Deliberate, she ordered, her tone heavy with the weight of what had unfolded, her glasses slipping as she glared at Carver with a look that could have melted steel, her earlier impatience now a bitter memory buried under the gravity of Malik's stand, her stern demeanor a wall breached by his truth. The jury filed out, but their faces told the story anger etched into every line. Their earlier nods replaced by a burning resolve that lit the room like a wildfire, their steps heavy with purpose as they moved with a quiet fury that pulsed through the space, their eyes reflecting a shift that could not be undone. 10 minutes later, they returned, the foreperson standing tall, her voice ringing like a clarion call through the hushed space, clear and unyielding as iron forged in fire, her stance a pillar of defiance that stood against the lies they'd been fed. Not guilty, she declared, each syllable a thunderclap that shook the walls. Her eyes meeting Carver's with a fire of her own, her words a verdict that echoed like a gunshot through the room, a resounding strike against the falsehoods that had tried to bury Malik. The gallery detonated, cheers erupting like a dam bursting, sobs mingling with shouts of triumph, a reporter's camera flashing as the moment seared into history, the sound a cacophony of vindication that rattled the windows and shook the room to its core, a roar that seemed to shake the very foundation of the courthouse like an earthquake unleashed. Marwood dismissed the case, her gavel's sharp crack a final note in the uproar. Her voice icy as she turned to the prosecutor, her stern eyes pinning her like a specimen under glass, her earlier haste now a bitter irony that hung in the air, like smoke, replaced by a weight of realization that pressed down on the room like a storm's aftermath. Ms. Carver, she added, her tone cutting through the noise like a whip, her gray streaks framing a face taut with authority that brooked no defiance. This court's referring you and Officer Pierce to the DOJ possible perjury and constitutional violations. The jury applauded, their fury a weapon turned on the prosecutor and cop, their claps echoing like gunfire through the room, a resounding rejection of the lies they'd been fed, their hands slamming together in a rhythm of retribution that pulsed through the space like a heartbeat of justice reclaimed, their eyes blazing with a mix of triumph and rage that lit the room like a flare in the night. A spectator uploaded the scene Carver's venomous taunts, Pierce's faltering lies, Malik's proof with the silver ring going viral before the dust settled, racking up views as the internet ignited with outrage and awe, the clip spreading like wildfire across screens, a testament to a teen's brilliance that turned the tide with a single truth. Malik clutched the ring, Neos' spirit alive in his victory, a quiet strength pulsing through him as he stood amidst the uproar, his red hoodie a banner of resilience against the chaos, his mother's lessons a shield that had broken the case wide open with the body cam's silent testimony. Pierce's lies lay in ruins, Carver's downfall a reckoning, a seismic shift felt in every corner of the courtroom, her sleek frame erased by a teen they'd underestimated, his proof shaking the room to its foundation with a truth that cut through the storm like a blade through shadow. Justice had roared through Malik's stand, and the echoes reverberated far beyond the walls of Memphis, a prodigy's precision rewriting the script in a single shattering moment that left the room breathless. Malik Evans stepped out into Memphis' humid dusk, his palm, reporters swarming but held back by his aunt, Tanya, her weathered hands pushing through the crowd with fierce pride, her eyes glistening with tears of relief and triumph, her voice trembling with emotion as she steadied herself against the onslaught of flashing cameras and shouting voices that battered the air like a storm. She pulled him into a tight embrace, her breath warm against his cheek as she whispered, Neos smiling down, anchor in the chaos, her tears mingling with the sweat on her face as she held him close, a lifeline through the tempest that had swept the day. Malik nodded, his throat tight as he fought back the sting in his eyes, the weight of his mother's loss mingling with the victory, his red hoodie damp with the day's sweat and resolve, a quiet testament to his fight that clung to him like a second skin weathered by the storm. I kept my promise, it's for her, for us, he said, his voice steady despite the lump in his chest, his words a vow renewed in the fading light, a quiet fire that burned through the grief to light the path ahead. Offers flooded an overnight Vanderbilt law sent a full scholarship community. Leaders begged him to speak at rallies, their letters piling up like a testament to his quiet power that had shaken the system to its core, their words a chorus of hope that echoed his stand. He chose law school, vowing to fight for mothers like Nia, lost to a system's neglect, his resolve a flame that burned brighter with every step, a promise to reclaim the justice she'd been denied. No more cells like hers, he told Tanya, clutching the ring as they sat on their sagging porch, the night air heavy with the scent of magnolias and rain-soaked earth, the city's hum a distant lullaby that carried hope on its wings through the stillness. The neighborhood erupted in celebration, cookouts spilled into the streets, a mural of Malik with the silver ring rose on a brick wall near the East End, kids chanting ring kid as they raced past, their laughter a melody of hope that lifted the night like a rising tide, their voices a chorus of possibility that echoed through the alleys like a song reborn. He spoke at a youth center, his voice steady and resonant, carrying the weight of Neos' legacy like a torch through the shadows, his words a beacon for the crowd that filled the room to the edges, their faces lit by the flickering light of candles held high in tribute. This isn't just my win, it's ours. Neos' ring says we don't shatter, we shine, he declared, his tone firm yet warm. His hoodie a symbol of resilience against the odds that had tried to bury him. His words a quiet fire that warmed the room like a hearth in winter, his eyes reflecting the light of those who stood with him. The crowd roared, their cheers shaking the walls, but Malik stayed grounded, the pain of losing his mother tempering the triumph, keeping his feet planted firm on the cracked pavement, his resolve a quiet flame that burned bright against the darkness that lingered still, a strength that refused to bow. He wasn't a hero yet, just a teen who'd turned grief into grit, the ring a marker now etched into Memphis asphalt and hearts, its engraving asterisk hold fast asterisk a mantra that guided him through the storm, a testament to a fight reclaimed from the ashes of loss. It wasn't about fame, it was about the vow had kept under the courtroom's unforgiving glare, and the battles had yet to wage with the law as his weapon. His precision a light piercing the shadows that stretched beyond the horizon, a quiet promise of more to come. Edward Langston sat in a cell across town, his wiry frame shrunken like a wilted stalk, his crisp suit traded for a threadbare jumpsuit that hung loose on his broken form, a mockery of the authority had once wielded with smug assurance. His sharp eyes dulled by defeat and despair, his hands trembling as he sat in the dim light that barely reached the corners of his confinement, a broken shell of a man had been. The viral clip his venomous taunts, Pierce's crumbling lies, Malik's proof with the body cam hit millions of views overnight, trending as hashtag Langston lied, a digital wildfire that consumed his name like dry grass under a match, leaving nothing but ash in its wake. By morning, the Department of Justice launched a probe, peeling back a festering wound, perjured testimony, payoffs to Pierce, a decade of railroading defendants. To pad his conviction stats, each revelation a nail in his coffin that sealed his fate with a clang that echoed through his empty life. The Memphis DA fired him on live TV, his law license revoked in a hearing that drew a jeering crowd, their boos a deafening chorus that drowned out his pleas. Their faces twisted with contempt as they waved signs demanding justice like a sea of fury unleashed, their shouts a tide that swept away his last shred of dignity. You betrayed the law, the bar president spat, her voice slicing through the silence as Langston sat, head bowed, his once wiry confidence reduced to ash and scorn, his crisp suit a distant memory that mocked his fall, a shroud that no longer fit the man had become. Lawsuit swarm families had railroaded, like Neos, draining his accounts to nothing. His upscale condo ceased to fund restitution, the gavel's echo of final toll that reverberated through his empty existence like a death knell that marked the end of his reign. His fiancée walked out, her parting words cold as she packed their car with bags. I want stay with a fraud, her voice a quiet blade that cut deeper than any courtroom verdict, leaving him alone in a rented motel where the walls seemed to close in like a cage. He faced federal charges, perjury, constitutional violations, up to 20 years. His fate sealed by the truth had mocked, the final blow coming when his law firm erased his name from its history, a press release branding him a disgrace to the bar, his legacy scrubbed like a stain from a wall, a ghost erased from the world had once ruled with smug assurance. He sat in the dim light, a broken husk, the silver ring haunting his dreams, a teen's quiet precision that had stripped him of everything, power, love, pride, leaving him a pariah in a world that turned away, his ruin a stark warning. Carved in digital fire and jail cell steel, a shadow fading into oblivion under the weight of his own lies, his once sharp gaze extinguished by the truth had tried to bury. Malik's victory sparked a firestorm. TV panels dissected Langston's corruption. Protests swelled outside the courthouse demanding Pierce's badge, their voices a thunderous chorus of change that rattled the city like a quake, shaking the foundations of a system long unchallenged, their signs a sea of defiance that flooded the streets with a tide of fury and hope. The silver ring became a rallying cry, activists wearing replicas, chanting, "Truth holds fast." Their shouts echoing through the night like a call to arms, their defiance a wave that crashed against the walls of power. The DOJ reopened Neos' case, exposing a web of jailhouse neglect, dozens of convictions overturned, families reunited with tears and clenched fists, their cries of relief a symphony that reverberated through the East End like a long-awaited dawn breaking over a shadowed land, their voices a chorus of redemption that lifted the night. Malik met with freed women, sharing Nia's story, his quiet strength igniting hope and resolve, his words a spark in their weary eyes that flickered into flame, their hands gripping his in gratitude as they stood together in the flickering candlelight, a quiet army reborn. "Keep holding," he said, the ring glinting like a beacon in the dim light of their gathering, its warmth a testament to a fight that refused to die. Online, the story exploded. #MalikRing trending, comments flooding in. He's a legend. Burn it down. The digital roar, a testament to a teen stand that shook the world awake. A wildfire that spread across screens like a call to action. He shunned fame but spoke once more. At a vigil, they lied till I made him hear. "We all can," he said, his voice a quiet thunder that lingered in the night. A challenge to a world stirring from slumber that echoed like a distant drumbeat, urging the fight forward, his words a spark that refused to fade. Langston's fall cracked the foundation, but the fight stretched on just beginning, a ripple growing into a wave that promised more battles to come, a tide that refused to recede. Malik Evans stood by Nia's old sewing corner, the silver ring in hand, Memphis. Twilight draping the cramped room in a soft, amber glow that softened the edges of the worn furniture, casting shadows that danced like memories across the cracked linoleum floor, a quiet sanctuary amidst the city's hum. He traced its engraved surface, hold fast, whispering, "We held on, Mom," his voice a quiet thread in the stillness, thick with pride and sorrow, a bittersweet warmth that filled the space like a long-held breath released, a promise kept that burned through the years of loss. The city pulsed beyond protests, fading into echoes, a mural of him with the ring glowing under streetlights like a sentinel in the night. But here, it was just him and his mother's memory, the victory a quiet flame in his chest that flickered with resilience and grief, a light that refused to dim despite the shadows that lingered still. The ring wasn't just metal, it was Nia's fight, Malik's anchor, a symbol now bigger than one trial, its faint warmth a heartbeat that echoed through the years of injustice like a rhythm reborn, a testament to a mother's love that guided him through the storm. Across town, Helen Carver sat in a cell, her sleek frame shrunken like a wilted flower, her life stripped to concrete and steel, her tailored blazer replaced by a threadbare jumpsuit that hung loose on her broken form, a mockery of the authority shed once wielded with venomous assurance, her sharp eyes dulled by defeat and despair that pressed down like a weight she couldn't lift. A radio crackled with Malik's vigil speech, his calm precision a specter she couldn't escape, his voice a haunting echo through the bars that caged her shattered spirit, a reminder of the ruined shed sown with her lies. Carver's hands tremble. Shed lost everything, career, love, freedom to a teen. Shed dismissed as nothing, a prodigy armed with a body cam and a will of iron that had shattered her world like glass under a hammer, her once venomous smirk extinguished by the truth Shed mocked, buried beneath the rubble of her own deceit that now entombed her like a crypt. But Malik's story didn't tie up neat. The sewing corner stood dusty, Vanderbilt law loomed ahead like a distant horizon calling him forward, yet the system towered cracked but stubborn, a beast still snarling in the shadows, its roots deep and unyielding despite the fisher's head carved with a stand, a victory that was a stepping stone rather than a finish line. As he stepped away, the ring in his pocket, questions gnawed like thorns in his mind, sharp and persistent as they pierced the quiet. How many Nias still suffered, silenced by corrupt hands that twisted truth into chains? How many teens faced courts that judged before they heard, their fate sealed by lies like Pierce's? The mural shone Malik, unbowed, a beacon, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. He paused, gazing at the skyline through the cracked window, the weight of his mother's loss pressing down like a stone he carried still, a fire smoldering in his veins that refused to die, its heat a quiet promise of battles yet to come. A resolve that burned brighter with every step into the fading light that stretched across the city like a canvas of hope and shadow. The city pulsed, headlines shifting, voices softening, but the ring's call lingered, urgent and unanswered, a quiet hum beneath the noise that whispered of more to fight for, a rhythm that refused to fade into silence, a pulse that beat through the dusk like a promise unbroken. If this hit you, the narrator would cut in, raw and insistent, breaking the silence like a clarion call that pierced the night. Don't let it fade. Share it. Speak it. Fight it. Malik proved a lie with one truth. What can you prove with yours? Justice isn't served, it's seized, day by damn day, and it starts with us. The voice would urge, a challenge that echoed like a drumbeat through the stillness, a spark that refused to die. The screen would fade, Malik's silhouette stark against the horizon, the rings glint a spark in the dark, a promise unbroken through the storm that had shaken the courtroom to its core, a quiet fire that burned through the shadows. He walked on, steps firm, purpose raw, the next fight brewing in his bones like a gathering tempest that loomed on the edge of the night, his hoodie a quiet banner of defiance that stood against the darkness that lingered still, a symbol of a fight reclaimed. Langston rotted, a shadow of a system cracked open, his legacy dust in the wind that blew through the streets like a forgotten whisper, a ghost erased by the truth had tried to bury. Malik carried Neos' spirit, a light for a world half awake, his quiet precision. A call to rise that echoed beyond the trial, a beacon piercing the gloom that stretched across the horizon like a challenge unmet. The story ended open hope flickering, shadows looming leaving one truth hanging. The fight wasn't over, and the ring whispered it had more battles to wage, its faint ticking a rhythm that promised the dawn was yet to come.